It's time for another episode of Espresso Yourself with Chuck. And now, coming to the mic, your host, Chuck.
I'm pleased to have from Goodland Tech, the Chief Growth Officer. Hopefully I got that title right, Alejandro Argueta. And hopefully I pronounced your name right.
Yep.
And so we're really excited to have you with us to talk about your career path and some of the things you're doing at Goodland Tech. So welcome.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm glad to be here today and excited to have this conversation.
Well, great. Well, Goodland Tech has been just an excellent partner for JAG-K in helping students prepare for successful futures, because you have a tremendous program and a partnership with Northwest Kansas Technical College, and we want to talk about that. But first, I would like to talk about your personal history and how you got to the position you're currently in. But also just how you got interested in technology and some of the skills that you possess. And did I get your title right? Is it Chief Growth Officer?
That's correct.
Okay, because that's not a common title. I'd also be interested in hearing about the title too. But let's go back further and tell us how it all began.
So, well, for me, I'm an entrepreneur by trade. So I actually started really, really young. I got into technology because I wanted to make video games. So I was a teenager wanting to build video games. My first computer was a Mac and trying to learn how to do that on a Mac. And so what I found out, though, when I started trying to get a job around 19, was that I worked for a packaging company. They make like little ketchup packets that you put for your tacos or your hamburgers and stuff.
Yeah.
And I found that I was really good at automating business workflows. So talking to people in the office, finding tedious tasks that they were doing all day long, and building like Excel scripts or little macros. And so I quickly found that I was really good at that, and I enjoyed talking to people. And so after I worked there, I kind of went into business for myself, from the Bay Area, California. And just word of mouth, put out flyers. There was no Facebook yet, no LinkedIn. So it was a lot of just word of mouth, handshaking, talking to people, trying to get as much contract work as I could. And I've been self-employed ever since. So, just I've worked for a lot of big companies now, mainly doing business automation, companies like Fox Racing, Broadcom. I've even done some work for BBC over in Europe, but that's primarily, it's been around coming into a business, interviewing the people in the business, finding out what it is that they do, and recommending ideas of how technology can make their day-to-day more efficient.
Got it. So let's go back a little bit. How did you develop your skills? You were interested in computers and started honing them, I guess, on the Mac, but how did you learn how to build these apps or whatever the tools?
So it was actually just a lot of trial and error. So I have a much different path than most people. I left my house young, so I had some challenges as a teenager. I do have a degree in computer technology, but I had to take my California high school proficiency exam to be able to go then take that 18-month course. So not that, didn't go through the whole college path. But what I learned early was learning how to learn is a very important skill. And that's what I did. I sat there on the internet many, many hours just practicing and playing around, trial and error. And at first I wasn't very good at it. So not quitting, I think, either was another important skill. Is every time I failed at something, I would focus on what did I learn from it, and then go try to do it again. Go try to do it again. And eventually, you start getting it right.
And were you driven by wanting to figure it out? Were you driven by, okay, I can make a lot of money doing this? Like what drove you to overcome those challenges and those barriers? Because as you said, you didn't maybe follow the traditional path, but we all have barriers in our lives, and it's not the barrier itself, but how you deal with it that matters. So what drove you?
So I think, yeah, I mean, obviously technology pays pretty well. So, I knew that I could make a good living. A lot of flexibility on where you can work, which, I'm half Guatemalan, quarter Mexican, and a quarter Austrian. So I've spent time with each side of those families and traveled in different cultures, and I really liked that part of the world. So that was another reason why I picked this industry, because I knew I could work from different places. I mean, and then, I think I was also fortunate to have other successful entrepreneurs around me, right? To kind of mentor me, or tell me, hey, you can do this, or you're really smart, keep going and keep trying, and kind of pushing me not to quit. So I think that's actually really, really important, which is kind of a little bit why I'm at Goodland Tech, is to kind of give back and help other students and other kids get that same kind of support that I was lucky to have, because I know a lot of people do not have that.
Sure. How did you get to Goodland Tech?
Well, I don't know how much people know about the history of the company, but the founder passed away in June. And Rick was a really good friend of mine. We worked on several startups here in the Bay Area. And when I found out what had happened, I had reached out to his widow, and she had asked if there was anything I could do to help Goodland Tech, that she really appreciated. And so I reached out to Sky. And so I've been helping them since August.
Okay. So can you tell us, this also explains, and this may be the most important question of our conversation today, but I think the answer is self-evident. How did you become a Raider fan? But I think it's probably location.
Location, yeah. So obviously I grew up in Berkeley, and a lot of time in Oakland. So Oakland A's, Oakland Raiders. But honestly, it was my first job was at Charles Schwab, and my coworkers had season tickets.
Okay.
And so I was 21 years old, and they would invite me to go with them, and we actually used to win then. So
Just win, baby.
Yep, just win, baby. But actually, I get asked that question a lot. And especially, I'd be out with a client at lunch, and they would say, hey, we'd start talking about sports. I go, oh, I'm an Oakland Raider fan. And they would normally say, well, I'm sorry. And what I would always tell them was like, well, I'm not. Just think, if I've been loyal to that team for 20 years, how do you think I'm going to treat you as my client? And that's
Great
all
answer.
gone over really well.
That's right. And it's interesting because obviously on this side of the state, we're in Topeka, so Chiefs Kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
But in Goodland, there are a lot of Denver Broncos fans,
Yep.
but both teams hate the Raiders.
I know. Right. I know, it's funny that I ended up there too, because both sides. I've been to Arrowhead, and haven't gone to the Broncos Stadium yet, but I plan to. But yeah, it's funny because I never thought I'd be sitting here working with Bronco and Chief fans.
Right. Well, that actually isn't the main reason we're talking today, but I thought it was interesting because a number of people that I've talked to about you have said you're a genius, but they don't understand why you're a Raiders fan. So this explains it. But I want to tap into, you've explained a little bit about how you got to be described as a genius. You taught yourself how to learn, you kept at it, you wanted to solve problems, and now you're teaching others to solve problems. So tell us about your role as Chief Growth Officer, and how that partnership between Goodland Tech and NKK, North Kansas Technical College. Wait, I'm not getting that right.
So, like you said, that title is not a usual title, and it was because they asked me, hey, what title do you want? And we couldn't figure out one traditional title that fit, because I was basically there to help. So I'm helping in any aspect of the business. Having my own consulting company in California, I'm also trying to help find clients and people who would hire the students. So really trying to help grow Goodland Tech, grow the students. And so that's kind of how we settled on the title. Yeah, I don't even know what it means yet, but here I am with it. As far as our relationship with the college, they have their 2-year program. And what I am doing is we've created a practicum where I'm taking the things that I have taught my team. So I have a software development team that I manage, and I've trained a lot of them. So several of them I got right out of high school or college, and kind of helped train them and gave them similar opportunities to, like I described earlier. And so I'm running the practicum just like that. And I told them, it's like, you guys are already getting your book education from the college. What I want to do is give you real life job experience within the technology that you're learning. And so what we've been, in fact, I just came out of class before this call, and what we've been doing is we created a project, but it's a real project, and we're going through all the aspects of the software development lifecycle, from brainstorming what should we do, drawing on the whiteboard to create like what it might look or feel like, and now I'm teaching them how to plan, teaching them how to use AI to learn. Not to do the work for them, but as a learning tool, so they can get more knowledge and learn how to learn. I think that's one of the primary critical thinking, learning how to learn, and communication are the main things I'm trying to teach my students.
And how do you, and I mean, maybe we should pay for the course, but how do you teach a student to use AI as a learning tool? Because I know a chat GPT, put in a prompt, but explain that, how you would instruct a student to utilize AI.
Yeah, so depending on the topic, so for us, it's primarily focused on software, but you could use this pretty much for any educational topic. Is there you can actually tell it to pretend you're an instructor and create me a program or a lesson plan, or hey, I want to know this thing that I'm interested in. Ask it, how could I learn this better? Help me learn this topic, and it'll give you suggestions. And so just kind of showing them how to go down the rabbit hole and follow the thread, but in a way that they're learning from it, and ask them questions that help educate them.
What are some other tools that you use to help students not only learn practical skills, but realize their full potential? Because maybe sometimes they don't know what they could do in the future.
Storytelling. I have a lot of stories from, I've been doing this for 25 years. Like I said, I come from not the usual path. And so sometimes either in group, I'll tell stories of, what's happened to me at a job, or what are my failures and how I overcame it. Or with some of the students, sometimes it's a one-on-one, pull them aside, get on a call, and just me and them, because some people don't like being in groups. They don't like to talk in front of people. It's important. You need to learn that skill. But that's one of the ways I help try to keep giving that positive support that I have.
What's one of the most common stories you tell students that seems to resonate mostly with them?
There really isn't one. It depends. I kind of pick from my stories based on the topic. For me, at least this first batch of students, they're really smart. I can see that they have a lot of potential, but I don't think they believe that they have it. And so stories where I was challenged with something, almost where I didn't believe in myself, and someone helped me, and I was able to push through it and come out on the positive side of things. I like to tell those stories a lot.
Is there one you'd be willing to share with our students today?
I mean, yeah, sure. It's, especially with software, it's kind of like baseball, where baseball's like a sport of your failures, and so that software can be that way. And so, like I said, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I've just told stories about, I've had like a client that fired me because they didn't, project didn't go well, and we lost all their money, and it was a big failure. But I was able to save the relationship. I was able to own my mistakes. I offered to help in any way that I could. It wasn't an intentional error. But yeah, I messed it up pretty good. In fact, yeah, he actually came as a guest speaker a week ago into Goodland from the Bay Area and talked to the students. He's a data scientist now. And so we're still friends. But I think that's one story I like to tell a lot, that you learn from your failures and you own up to them. If you make a mistake, hey, I made a mistake, do what you can to fix it, and just try not to make it again.
That's a great story. That's a great story. Approximately how long ago was that?
Well, we've been friends 8 years, so it was
Okay.
about 8 years ago when I messed up his business, but we're still friends to this day.
Yeah, that's great. What seems to be the biggest barrier for most students? You mentioned this current class is pretty smart, but maybe just having confidence in their own abilities or ability to solve problems or whatever. What is there a common challenge for students, or maybe just general for
Yeah,
people?
it's actually one that I share. Is, I was even nervous to come onto this call. I'm public speaking, talking in front of people in groups is something you're going to get in your work environment. It's something that you have to kind of get over those butterflies that you get before it happens. Because a lot of the kids don't want to talk. And so figuring out how to get them to talk, and once they let go of that barrier, man, they got a lot to say. They have a lot of knowledge to share. So I would think it's communication, like learning how to talk. I had a coach, she sent me to Toastmasters, which was, public speaking thing that helped me a lot. It's a fear for a lot of people, but that is probably one of the biggest barriers that I see all the time.
And I know you're relatively new to Goodland Tech, but not to technology. What are some of the best opportunities that you see your students having once they get through the program?
Well, I think right now we're going through a transitional period in technology. AI has a lot to do with that. And so, there's some people who are worried about, am I going to still have a job? Are these skills going to work? But the way I see it is technology changes like this have happened all throughout history. And yes, there's a small period of time where there's going to be different change happens. People are uncomfortable with change. But what this is actually going to do is going to even the playing field. I think a lot of people are going to get an opportunity to enter into new fields, like new job, new careers, new roles that will all use some flavor of technology that won't require the traditional 10 years experience. I think you're going to have a lot of more opportunities for a lower barrier of entry into technology jobs. So I think that's going to be a huge opportunity for them. And then, like I said, learning how to learn applies to whatever comes next. Whatever technology comes next, we'll be inventing new ways of using AI. There'll be new tech jobs, robots, cybersecurity. All of these fields are growing, and so I think that there's a ton of opportunity coming. I just, it might just have a couple of years to all figure out what's what.
When you talk to prospective students, what's the most common question they ask you, either about the program or about technology generally, or maybe it's something, just totally off topic from those things?
Most of them ask me, how can I make a lot of money?
Huh?
It's one of the top, yeah. And how will I find a job when I graduate? Those are probably the top two questions.
Okay. And so if I'm a senior in high school, and I know we have some of our students that are in the program or are going to the program, but if I'm a senior in high school and I say, hey, I want to make a lot of money, I'm interested in technology, but I'm really not sure what I want to do. And I haven't really done much in it. I just think it would be cool to create video games or maybe something else. What would you say to them, either about how they get to that goal, how they would get there through Goodland Tech or Northwest Kansas Technical College? Because I know, some people still think that college degree, I got to get a computer science degree and then I got to get all these certifications. What's your advice to that senior in high school if they want to make their career in technology?
I mean, honestly, I would just tell them that they need to try it, right? Get in there and learn how to use the technology. I think students will know right away, or pretty quickly if they're into it, like if this is what they want for themselves. But I also know even if they choose a different path, the skills that you learn at least in these courses and on how to use technology they're going to apply to so many different jobs in the future. Like almost every job will be a technology job in some way, right? So even if you're not a software programmer or a data scientist, maybe you could just be a salesperson or an executive somewhere. All of these kind of jobs are going to now be augmented with technology in the future. And so I think you're learning a skill that will carry forward in something that you do like. That's probably what I would say. And then as far as the degrees go, I only have an AA. I work with people who are PhDs and have their bachelors and they've done that whole path. And we'll sit side by side in a room and get on a whiteboard. And it's just, put in the work, figure out what you're interested in and put in that time and put in the hours, even if it's by yourself. It's the practice, it's the failing and getting up again and doing it again that gets you the experience. And I would rather have someone with experience than what I call a paper degree. It's boots on the ground experience goes a long way.
Yeah. What do you see yourself doing 5 years from now?
Hopefully I'm still doing something with education. I actually had never done education before. Like I said, I've been an entrepreneur, many startups, trained a lot of teams. So I've educated in that sense, but not at this level where I can see that what I'm teaching these students is changing them for the better. And I actually really enjoy it. So hopefully I'm still doing something like this in 5 years.
Right. And Goodland is a great community, but certainly a different pace or different environment than Oakland, California, or the Bay Area. So how has that adjustment been?
It's actually, well, I'm out here once a month. So I'm not living all here full time. But as I mentioned before, I'm half Guatemalan, and my dad was from a town of 2,000 people. And I'd go down every year for a month at Christmas time to spend a month there with my cousins and stuff. So I had some exposure to small town life where things are slower and, people are nicer. So I actually enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my time in Goodland.
Great. So what do you do in your free time?
Well, I don't have much of that. So I'm married and I got 4 kids.
Oh, golly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so often I'm coaching. I coach baseball, I coach soccer, learning. So technology, things change so fast. So I'm learning how to learn myself. I use ChatGPT a lot to learn new things and trying to always stay current. And then probably binge watching things on Netflix or something when I have just time to relax.
What are you binge watching right now or recently?
Oh, on Sunday I watched the whole first season of Halo.
Oh,
Yeah, and so I mean I like all kinds of movies, but that one I just started watching it with my kids, and we, it got dark and we realized we watched the whole season. So yeah.
so this may be a tough question, but what is one of your all-time favorite movies?
Wall Street.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So one of my first jobs was for Charles Schwab, and I was working on a project where we were doing these before flat screens came out. They were just coming out to do marketing on the street. And I was locked in a room with a team for many hours, and we would play movies in the background, and that one played on repeat. So I've watched it a lot. I like that story of the person trying, the Gordon Gekko and that whole world, and I like those kind of movies. So that's one of my favorite movies.
So last question, we really appreciate your time with us today, even though you're a Raiders fan. What is the best piece of coaching advice you give either your children or your players when you're coaching them?
not to quit. So like, yeah, it's take those hard moments and use them to learn and try harder. Every one of my soccer kids, they, oh, I can't do it. I'm no good. I should have made that goal. And then, just talk to them, like, well, go get the next one. Go make the next goal. Yeah. So just that, I think if you quit on things, that's going to be your biggest challenge. Like you need to use those opportunities to look at what happened and what can you change and go try it again.
Well, that's great advice. Alejandro, thank you so much for giving us your time, sharing your experience and the wisdom. We hope to see you soon. We've got a program in Goodland, obviously, but we send a lot of students, JAG-K students, to Goodland Tech and really appreciate what you're doing to help them prepare for successful futures.
Well, I'm enjoying it. Thank you for having me.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thanks for watching Espresso Yourself with Chuck. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will subscribe to the channel and also check out all the videos on our Jobs for America's Graduates Kansas YouTube site.
Music for Espresso Yourself with Chuck is provided by Bensound Music at bensound.com. Thank you to our announcer, Kelly Newton, and producers Kim Ferdig and Don Deere.